One was a Maryland father picked up and deported to the prisons of El Salvador for no reason. Or does this story, like Signalgate, deserve some deconstruction to arrive at the truth? 2, why are Lucky Charms above steak on the food pyramid? What do we need to understand about the agendas behind our children's diet? Let's break it all down with Dr. Ben Carson. 3, Congressman Tim Burchett, who's coming out today of a House Judiciary Committee meeting, might have had the ultimate burn on the streets in front of the Capitol. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand by subscribing at Apple or on Spotify. Terrestrial radio, some 36 markets across the great United States of America. Make sure you tune in every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time at Fox News Facebook or Fox News YouTube. Set a reminder, jump down into the comments section. Come hang out with us every Monday through Thursday, 12 o'clock Eastern Time. But if you miss that window, head on over to the Will Cain Show page on Facebook or on YouTube. You can get past episodes, interviews, become a member of the community, something we like to call the Willisha. What's up, fellas? Tinfoil Pat, Young Establishment James, Two-A-Days Dan. How are we today?
Good. Well rested. Good. Well rested. Are you well rested?
I'm well rested, but general warning, flirting with quitting nicotine. So
I'm out.
Buckle up, tinfoil.
We're going back to just your camera, and see you later.
I quit.
Look at Patrick's face. Yeah, look at Patrick's face. It's not even the best version of Patrick is the absolute real version of Patrick. And the minute that he heard that, I saw a real face. I saw redness. And then we heard you. You quit. I can already feel it coming, by the way. I can feel it. I can feel the grumpiness. Mm-hmm. It's on the edges. It's creeping in.
When's the last time?
What do you mean you want me to read this ad? What do you mean I've got 4 more ads to read today? What do you mean I've got a television show to prepare for? What do you mean? And God help Patrick if he calls me after the show today, because I know that when he does, he's like, oh, God, here we go.
He calls me
after
first.
Having spent
he calls me first.
Hour together. Yeah. After an hour together. My wife knows the worst things in the world for me is planning. I hate it. You know what I hate more than anything? Can we talk about this weekend in June and whether or not you can take some time off or whether or not you like these flight schedules or where you might want to make dinner reservations? Mm-hmm. No. It's the worst. It is literally like I'm in Vietnam and they're pulling my fingernails out of a bamboo hut somewhere deep in the jungle. I can't do it. I hate it. And Patrick calling me to run through the laundry list of to-dos for this show is only slightly above that. God, what else do I have to do today other than the 2 shows that I want to focus on doing?
I did make a suggestion. So I think maybe we'll just make a list for you, and then you could read it at your leisure.
It's not even going to help. Because, by the way, the other thing is it plays, like anything else in life, it's emotional. And you know, I have all these things that I'm supposed to be doing that you guys don't have any idea of. You know, this text I didn't respond to, this inquiry I got to get back to, and I'm bad at it. And they're all hanging over me. And the point is that there is guilt associated with all of it. And so that's the emotional component to all of us, right? We all have that. And so I have this like guilt. Yes, okay, I got to get that. I got to get to that too. And this, like, I used to flirt around with those New Year's resolutions of get up an hour earlier and communicate. I think I have to now. I literally have to.
That's good.
Otherwise,
no.
I don't know. Shut up, James. I don't know. I don't know when.
I'm going to go ahead and turn his microphone off.
I don't know when in my day I'm going to get to the checklist other than if I just do it before I get a call from Patrick asking me whether or not I can read these ads. Or how I did it wrong last time, and how. And by the way, when you have something you need for me to do on my to-do list that also involves signing up for something and passwords, we're now done. We're in the vortex, okay? This is me and the Princess Bride stuck in the quicksand. I'm slowly going under. The only thing you could add to it more, the types of things that literally I could drag out for years, is if there's a government bureaucracy involved as well, a.k.a. the DMV or the IRS. If the IRS, the DMV, a password, some archaic technology, and a to-do list are involved, I'm donezo. I'm defeated. That's my Achilles heel. It's over. We just lost Will Cain. All right. We're going to plow ahead today because grumpiness is only on the horizon. It's not quite here. It hasn't settled the frontier yet. That'll be tomorrow. So Patrick and James can buckle up and fear the wrath. Let's get to it, though, with story number one. A Maryland father deported to the gulags of El Salvador for absolutely nothing. That's the story as you wake up this morning. That's the story at CNN, New York Times. That's the story as it screams from the headlines across CNN. So much of life, as I've come to think about recently, is framing. What hits your radar first? Whatever hits your radar first, most often creates the boundaries of understanding, acceptable thought, sight. If someone tells you this is what happened, it's very hard for you or me or a mass audience to deconstruct that frame in order to get to the truth. I thought this was really illustrated well. We had him on our show and we discussed this. But Tony Robbins did a podcast with Theo Vaughn where he talked about the way you see the world. Now, Tony was talking about positive versus negative thoughts and focus. But for me, this issue of focus also works with how we retain and process information. Here's a reminder. Here's Tony Robbins on Theo Vaughn.
Anything you see that's brown, people at home, look at that in your own room. What you see is brown. Okay, close your eyes.
Okay.
Tell me everything you just saw that was red. Now, obviously, you saw a lot more brown, didn't you?
Yeah.
Why? Because you're looking for it. Open your eyes. Now look for red. Look for red anywhere you can find red. Any place you can find red.
Okay.
Okay? Did you find more red this time?
Mm-hmm.
How come?
Because I was looking for red.
That's right. Once you develop a belief, you find what supports it. So watch this. You will find stuff that's not even there in order to be successful. I bet you saw some beige shit, called it brown just to feel successful, did you?
Right over there.
I bet you saw some things burgundy and called them red just so you could feel successful.
I factored in some of those.
That's so incredibly fascinating. Whatever the success bias is, I think it's not that far akin from confirmation bias. You believe what you want to believe when you went into a story and factored the facts in to support the way you entered. That's why it's so important how a story is framed. A Maryland father deported to the El Salvadorian gulags for absolutely nothing. Is that what happened? This, of course, is a story that is tied into the Trump deportation flights. Most often, or notoriously, invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. But not only invoking the Alien Enemies Act, there are several different processes the Trump administration is utilizing in order to deport not just illegal immigrants, but illegal immigrants they contend are gang members and criminals beyond the crime of illegal immigration. J.D. Vance, vice president, pointed out the harms and costs of illegal immigration, lest we begin to think that it's this victimless crime. Illegal immigration in and of itself, longer wait lines at the hospital, harder to enroll in school, inflationary prices on labor, or deflationary prices on labor, inflationary prices on homes and goods with increased demand. 20 some odd million, 30 million, 40 some odd million illegal immigrants in the country has a profound impact on the lives of the citizens of America. A real cost. And that's before you even get to the crimes committed by illegal aliens. They could be as simple as traffic accidents from people who are incapable of reading road signs in English, to murder and rape, the likes of which are Jacqueline Nungaray in Houston and Laken Riley in Georgia. The Trump administration decided these costs are too much and that they will take action. Not unlike what we talked about a week ago when it comes to Signal Chat Gate. Action will sometimes be messy, and action will often be imperfect, but it is action that is to be taken. Is the cost in this case that a Maryland father of 3 was deported for absolutely nothing, not afforded due process, and now sits rotting in the gulags of El Salvador? Well, to correct the records and the facts and try to readjust the frame, let us first understand some of the facts. This man in Maryland was here illegally. He had committed a crime already. And for me, personally, that is enough. That is enough. Punishment for the crime of illegal immigration should be deportation from the country where you illegally immigrated. Deported. But the story needs further facts, I guess, for the method and means which this man was deported. There are allegations that he was a member of MS-13. Was he a gang member? There were claims made in a court case in Maryland that he was affiliated with gangs. Claims in the court filings seemingly substantiated by trusted sources in the past. Now, these gang members, this alleged gang, was not a conviction of being a gang member. But it also isn't something coming from nothing. Is that enough to get him deported immediately? What about due process? Well, if you're an illegal immigrant to this country, do you deserve the entirety of what we come to know as due process? Innocent until proven guilty, jury of your peers, all the court procedure and civil proceedings of a U.S. court system? Or can it be administrative? Can it be a checklist with an immigration judge? What is due process? Is due process for someone who's not a citizen of the United States exactly the same as someone who's a citizen of the United States? Is due process defined the same in all situations? In the end, this man is deported. He is now in El Salvador. And the Trump administration is saying it was a mistake to deport him directly to El Salvador. Why? Not because he wasn't an illegal immigrant. Why? Not because of allegations of gang affiliation. Why? Because after he was in court for a criminal proceeding, alleged to have gang affiliations, he then claimed asylum in the United States, suggesting that he was persecuted by El Salvadorian gangs, and that if he was deported, it should not then therefore be to El Salvador, where he could potentially be subjected to torture. If there was a mistake, according to the Trump administration, it was the mistake of deporting him directly to El Salvador. But is this, I want you to think about the passion. I want you to think about the fervor around this story. I want you to think about the quantity of coverage. And I want you to ask yourself, was it matched? Be honest. Seriously. Was it matched on CNN after the murder of Jocelyn Nungare? Was it matched with the coverage of Laken Riley? Were all the commentators on Twitter, the same ones, so dedicated to the crimes of illegal immigrants? And if the answer is no, let's readjust our frame. Let's think about this. Maryland father of 3, huge passion on the story. Why? Why? Dispute over the facts. Why? Because it's a broad swipe attack against the deportation of illegal immigrants from the Trump administration. It is now a flag. It's a flag to plant. It's a flag to fly. Just like Signal Chat Gate was a flag to fly with a larger story of trying to take down members of the Trump administration under the banner of incompetence. Interesting to note, by the way, why is Pete Hegseth third in the firing line? I think there's no doubt that he is. No, I'm serious. It's kind of interesting, right? Obviously, number 1 in the firing line, Donald Trump. Number 2 in the firing line, Elon Musk. Why is Pete Hegseth third in the firing line? These stories become false frames in order to be used as a broad swipe attack against a broader policy, but ultimately against a group of people that you see as a threat. And that, in this case, is the Trump administration. One last note I'll note, the broad swipe attacks. Man, I've spent the last 3 or 4 years thinking most of this is TDS, simple insanity, psychosis. People have overly internalized hatred of Donald Trump. But yesterday, a court in France ruled ineligible Marine Le Pen, the quote-unquote far-right national rally candidate of France, from running for president in 2027, invalidated her. By the way, Calin Georgescu, who's also a quote-unquote far-right candidate who won the first round of elections in Romania, convicted of a crime and no longer capable of running for president in Romania. Jair Bolsonaro In Brazil, the quote-unquote far-right candidate convicted of crimes also barred from running for re-election for president in Brazil. Donald Trump, multiple cases of lawfare in the United States trying to bar him from running for president here at home in the U.S. At some point, it can't just be TDS. It's not a localized problem. It's a global problem. And you have to wonder, what's the global ideology? What's the global organization? What's the global push to take down not just a man in Donald Trump, but policies, an administration, and an ideology spanning across the world? You ever wondered why the food pyramid seems to be the guiding light for most of our life and how it guides what we put into school lunches? It could be for reform on the horizon. Let's figure it out with Dr. Ben Carson coming up next on The Will Cain Show. What did he say? Something about your mother preparing Hot Pockets and Game Boys? Congressman Tim Burchett had a burn for some troll outside the Congress last week. He's going to join us a little bit later here today on The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. It was better than sick burn, bro. It was pretty good, though. I don't know if he had it locked and loaded or if he came up with it off the top of his head, but does your mom have your Hot Pockets and Game Boy ready when you come home at night? Let's talk in a little bit to Congressman Tim Burchett. But for now, he comes to us today interested in talking about how government control in our school meal programs is influenced by political agendas, what it means for our children's nutrition. It is former presidential candidate, former director of housing and urban development. It is Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson on The Will Cain Show. How you doing, doctor?
Good to be with you, Will. Doing very well, thanks.
Good. Glad to have you. So tell me about this subject that seems to have your attention these days, what we're feeding our kids and how we're doing it through the school system.
Well, clearly there has to be something going on with our children. We have a third of our children on some type of chronic medical condition, asthma, allergies, doing much worse than other comparable countries around the world. And it makes you think there must be something going on in our system. And when you look at all the commonalities, one of them is the food that we're feeding our children. And, it's not just the dyes, it's the other things that are allowed into our foods, which other countries don't allow. So, we don't really even have to do a great big study. All we have to do is look at the ones who are doing well and say, what are they doing that we aren't doing? It's the kind of thing that we sometimes neglect to do. For instance, during the COVID crisis, if we looked at the western coast of Africa, we would see that they had 94% less incidence of COVID than we did. Well, that should grab our attention. Why are they having so much less? And of course, we would have seen that they take hydroxychloroquine as an anti-malaria, and it would have sparked something, and we would have said, maybe there's something to this. But we don't seem to do that. And the only reason we would not do that is not because we're stupid. It's because somebody has something to gain from doing it the other way.
I had never heard that, Dr. Carson. I've heard about the, of course, impacts of hydroxychloroquine dating back several years. We had that debate during COVID, but I've never heard the petri dish of little laboratories and experimentation across the globe, which you're right, different countries offer us those opportunities. But I'd never heard about the west coast of Africa. So what are we talking about? Like Senegal, Liberia, they had much better situation with COVID?
Much better situation with COVID. And the only real big difference that was found is that they take hydroxychloroquine. And, that was very irritating to me because we could have saved a lot of lives. And if we had not just sort of poo-pooed that and said, oh, that will kill you, it'll cause you heart attacks. We had decades of evidence that it doesn't do that. And we also had some crazy FDA rules that said before you could issue an EUA for the vaccine, emergency use authorization, you had to ensure that there was no other viable treatment. So, of
Right.
course, somebody who really wanted to push the vaccines would try to suppress other viable treatments.
What have you learned? Because you alluded to it now, and this is what we're talking about. What other countries are doing food well, where you've seen, oh, their kids don't suffer from all these allergies and whatever else
Most of our friends in Europe, our very allies, don't have these same incidents. Also, our incidence of cancer in children has gone up dramatically since the 1980s. And we're not seeing those same dramatic increases in other countries that are comparable to us. So it seems to be an environmental issue. And the thing that seems most likely to be the cause in the environment are the foods that we're eating.
So if I go to Europe, and I don't know the answer to this, but for example, like peanut allergies, gluten allergies, these are all the allergies that have popped up onto the radar in my lifetime. They weren't a thing when I was a child. We weren't talking about these things. Now they're fairly common. You hear about somebody who's suffering from these things. If we look across the globe, is that not something that's happening in Europe or other places or at much lower rates?
It's happening at lower rates. And my understanding is that things like peanut allergies, which are emphasized so much in our country, and we keep children away from them, rather than allowing them to expose to things that occur naturally in our environment and to develop immunity to them. So if you keep people in a bubble, they're going to end up being allergic to a lot more things than if you let them go out and experience the world.
So this weekend, I went and I ate Italian food with some friends. I was in Florida, and this was a legit Italian restaurant. Like, this was good. It was small. It's run by, Italians. And I was like, I don't drink wine. Somebody asked me. I said, I don't drink wine. I don't sleep well. I can't explain it. When I have red wine, I can't sleep well. I've run the human body experiment on myself over a number of years. I know this. I will not sleep well tonight. Somebody said, well, it's because you're drinking American wines. You need to drink Italian and French wines, and you won't have all that same stuff in it. So what I'm getting at here with you is, what are we adding to our foods? Whether or not it's wine, whether or not I always hear the term, Dr. Carson, processed. We have processed foods. They don't have that in Europe. Well, like, what are we talking about? Pesticides so that we can grow on a mass scale and sell at volume in a cheaper way? Like, what are we doing, and why are we doing it that it seems to be the problem in the food chain?
Well, that's one of the things that the MAHA movement and HHS is going to be looking at all the things that you mentioned, looking at the fact that there are certain zones in the world called blue zones, where you have people who live to be 100 years old or longer. Only one of those blue zones is in the United States of America, but there are about 5 of them that are established. And the thing that seems to be in common there is that people eat a very healthy diet, mostly a plant-based diet, quite frankly. They don't engage in a lot of drinking of any kind of wine, any kind of alcohol. They tend to do a lot of drinking of pure water. They exercise, and they have strong family relationships. People forget about the fact that your brain controls a large part of what happens in your body. If you're sitting there in the studio right now, you're very nice and calm. If a tiger walked in there, without touching you, your heart rate would accelerate, your blood pressure would go up, your pupils would change, your bladder would change, all kinds of things would happen. Now, imagine if that's happening on a chronic basis in your life.
Right. Where is that blue zone in America? You said only one is in the United States. Where is it?
Loma Linda, California.
Really? Where's Loma Linda? Is that Northern California?
No, that's Southern California. And it's not.
Oh,
it's
what's
about
happening there?
60 miles away from Los Angeles, in San Bernardino County.
And what's
basically,
happening in Loma Linda?
There are a lot of people there of the Seventh-day Adventist faith, and they have from the time that they're very young, tremendous emphasis on healthful living. And it does make a difference. Most medical schools will teach the first year medical students that there are a couple of groups of people in America who live 7 to 10 years longer than everybody else, and ask the question, why is that? To emphasize the fact that lifestyle does make a difference.
Back to sort of what we're doing to our foods, and I understand that you said that's exactly what we want to study within the MAHA movement. Let me just offer up two other thoughts I have. Sugar. We seem to be an outlier in additive sugar into almost everything that we eat. And I have to wonder about the impact on the human body of sugar. But the second is obesity in general, driven by easy access to high calories. So it's just too easy to get a ton of calories in America now, right? Everything's chock full of calories, in fact. Where I would imagine if you would do this globally, like real starvation isn't a problem in America. Now, maybe you could make some modern definition of starvation where it doesn't include actual nutrients, but you're getting a caloric surplus in America. Sure. Look at the poorest among us. They're often obese. What I would guess is if we went and started doing what you asked us to do a moment ago, which is look across the globe, we're going to see countries where it's just not so easy to get so many calories. It probably is getting easier, by the way, with the export of American foods. I mean, look at Mexico. Mexico's getting fat. You know,
no, you're
on
target. You're
go
right
ahead.
on target. And, you know, we have a lot of people who want to make excuses in our country. They say, I don't really eat that much. I have a gland problem. You heard that all your life. They do have a gland problem. It's a salivary gland. And the fact of the matter is, you know, if you will not gain weight if your calories expended exceeds your calories taken in. It's impossible. You can't do it. Also, our teenagers, 18% of our teenagers now have fatty liver disease, infiltration of fat into their liver, which predisposes them to a variety of problems later on in life. And that number is increasing. So again, it tells you that there's something going on with the way that we are feeding our people.
What about the government's role in this? Because I know you're focused on that, and specifically, I guess, the way we're subsidizing it or providing it, or through schools, but also we created this food pyramid back in the day, right? You, a minute ago, by the way, you said to me that longer lives are associated with primarily vegetarian diets. That's a little bit in contra to some of the stuff we're hearing among the modern, health gurus, which is you need to be eating I mean, honestly, I'll be real with you, Dr. Carson. Eating a ton of protein, like a gram per body weight of protein is what we need to be doing. So what should we be doing here? Vegetables or protein?
Well, I would not ever be in a position of wanting to dictate what people eat. I would say do it in moderation and do it in a balanced fashion. So, if you want to eat your steak, don't stuff yourself with steak. Make sure you have a balanced diet and do it in a way that you're not stuffing food in your mouth constantly. Because if you do that, you are sending the blood to your splanchnic area, to the gut, rather than to your brain. And you want to have good blood flow to your brain. And that's why you should only eat 2 meals a day, 3 at the most, and not be grazing throughout the day.
You just said you would never want to be in a position to dictate what somebody eats. Did you see this debate pop up last week, Dr. Carson, which is there was a conversation of whether or not SNAP, which is modern day term for food stamps, essentially, right, should be covering sodas, Cokes, that kind of thing. And it's interesting. It kind of divided people on the right. On one hand, there was a group that's like, the government shouldn't be telling us what to spend anything on. The other is like, well, I mean, this is government assistance, so use it for healthy food.
Well, clearly, you shouldn't be using it for things that are harmful. If we're proving that they're harmful. We proved decades ago that cigarettes were harmful. And there's no way that any government program should supply cigarettes to anybody. I think we can all agree on that. if there are other things that are clearly detrimental to the health of people, obviously there should be no government support of that. But that's different from the government denying the use of it.
Where are we today on the food pyramid? Has it been retired, by the way, or is it still the guiding light of government recommendations in nutrition? Is it well past its expiration date?
I hope so. I hope that we are going to be a lot more objective and just look at the data, understand the data, and inform people of the data. You know, I'm not in favor of banning a lot of substances, but I am in favor of making sure that people know what's in those substances and what they do to you. And if we do that, I think most people are smart enough to kind of figure it out on their own. They're not going to want to be feeding their children things that are shown to be detrimental to them, that are shown to predispose them to various diseases. And, you know, one of the things that's very bothersome, you look at the tremendous number of children who are diagnosed on the autism spectrum now. It used to be like 4 in 10,000 in the 80s. Now we're 1 in 36. Is what in the world is causing that to occur? The explosion of attention deficit disorder. You know, it used to be 1 or 2 kids in the school, and now it's, you know, a third of the classroom. What's going on? You know, I have my own theories about that. I used to have parents come in and say, pediatrician wants to start the kid on this for attention deficit disorder. And I would say, well, before you do that, do something for me. Stop. I asked them, can they watch television? Oh, yeah, they can watch TV all day. Can they play video games? All day long. I said, well, do this for me. Wean them off of those things slowly and substitute time with you, reading with them and discussing what you're reading, and spend quality time with them.
Right.
Come back and see me in 3 months and tell me if you still need that medication. The majority of them did not need it. So I think it's pseudo attention deficit disorder, because what do we do as soon as a kid can sit up? We prop them in front of the TV, zoom, 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 zip, zip, zip. That's all their brain is seeing. They get a little older, they get some manual dexterity, you give them the controls to the video game, zip, 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 zoom, zoom, zoom. Now they're 5 or 6, you put them in a classroom and the teacher's not turning into something every few minutes. You think they're going to pay attention? We have to get that brain in the right environment, and it will do amazing things.
I know I don't mean to make light of this, but I think there's also some, you know who I used to love watching, Dr. Carson? Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer. And, you know, the first thing he did when there was a dog that misbehaved and just couldn't get his behavior right, constantly bad, is like, let's go for a walk. Let's go for a run. They got to get outside. They got to exercise. Then we can get them into a place in their brain where they can pay attention and start learning good behavior. I have to think there's something to that as well. I mean, I just think, you know, kids inside in a classroom, in front of a video game, in front of a TV, it's just like you got to run some of this out. And I don't mean to make light in that ADHD isn't a real problem, but I agree with your diagnosis that it's an overprescribed problem. I think it becomes a catch-all for anything. Autism's different because I don't think that is as much open to interpretation from a doctor looking to prescribe a medication. What are we dealing with here? Like, I just can't think of a more important question. You said you have your theories, but I mean, I can't think of a more important question in the one you just laid out for us. Why have the rates gone from what they were to what they are in a relatively short amount of time in humanity? 50-year time frame?
Right. And what is that going to do to us as a society? You know, the incidence of childhood cancer has gone up by 48% in the last half a century in our country. Why is that? You know, we're actually starting to ask those questions with the MAHA movement. And I'm thrilled that this is going on. I think we will find the answers and I think we will respond to it. But at least we're starting to ask those questions now, finally.
Well, I think about how impactful, just to take this full circle, the food pyramid was in my life, in school, and the choice we all make. And like, if you guys can have a similar impact in terms of, exactly what you said, communicating with the public and helping them frame what are healthy choices, it could be a transformational movement if it has a similar impact. Speaking of that, though, I mean, you were there. You had under your purview HUD. And I think we're seeing right now the challenges of all of these cabinet secretaries under Donald Trump in the second administration, dealing with the bureaucracy underneath them, the public pushback, at least in terms of the media, and so forth. How hard was it to go in with a new independent, maybe at that time, I think definitely at this time, somewhat revolutionary approach or a disruptive approach to the way things are done? How hard was it to get that big institution to follow in line?
Well, it was difficult. There's no question about that. First of all, I was horrified looking at the books. HUD had not had an audit in 8 years. You're required to do an audit for every federal agency annually. You couldn't do an audit because there were so many material defects. So the first job was to get the books straightened out. We had to cajole a senior official from Ernst & Young to come, and he finally came. You probably noticed about a year and a half into the first Trump administration, you stopped hearing all those horrible stories about fiscal mismanagement at HUD. But that was job number one. And then there were a lot of people whose mindset is not for change. They like the status quo, and they drag their feet. They do everything they can to slow down what you're trying to do. But we were able to work with a lot of those people and get things done. But it was difficult, and working with Congress was much more difficult than I expected. I didn't have a deputy secretary for 8 months. I didn't have any assistant secretaries for 5 months because they kept holding up the people. They didn't want to give them the people. They figured that if you didn't have any people, you'd get frustrated and go away. They don't know me. That will never make me go away. But we finally did get the right people in place, and we were able to get a lot of things accomplished. And you know, I'm thrilled about the new secretary. He was somebody that I worked with when I was secretary, particularly on the opportunity zones. He's young, very energetic. A lot of the people who we had gotten to work with us came back and are back now. And I think we'll see some very good things coming out of that organization. I do hope that maybe we take this opportunity to move some of the federal agencies out of Washington, D.C. There's nothing that dictates that all the federal agencies have to be in Washington, D.C., because then all the careers tend to be from Washington, D.C. and from Northern Virginia and have a certain political philosophy. We want the agencies to be representative of the entire country.
Where would you put HUD?
I think Texas would be a good location for it.
All right. Yeah.
A lot of people with common sense in Texas.
We can't put them all in Texas. We'll have to scatter all these different cabinets and administrators, departments throughout the country. All right. Dr. Ben Carson, great conversation as to be expected. Thanks so much for giving us your time today.
Thanks for what you do. We appreciate you.
All right. There you go. It's Dr. Ben Carson here on the Will Cain Show. Okay, Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee had this moment. I'm going to play this video for you in just a moment where he dealt with a troll outside of Congress. And my son sent it to me. My 17-year-old sent it to me. I said, yeah, Charlie, I've already seen it. So you don't have to send me everything thinking I'm totally in the viral dark. We'll play it for you in case you haven't, though, next on the Will Cain Show. Locked and loaded with Hot Pockets and Game Boys. Congressman Tim Burchett coming up here on the Will Cain Show. Streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Hey, hit subscribe at Apple or Spotify. We'd love it. You could give us a 5-star rating if you think it's so deserved. You could definitely leave a comment, and you can join the show live in the comment sections at YouTube or Facebook. So we get the Final Four a little bit later this week, and the guys here on the show, we all basically have a different national champion picked, roughly, but there's only a couple of us still running in the running to win it all. I am one of them. I have Florida. A young establishment, James, has Duke. Tinfoil Pat, who's out, I believe, has. Do you have Auburn? It's always hard because you put one in for Tommy Tuberville, and he had Auburn, but it was under your name, I believe.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I have Duke.
2 days you have. All right. So in 2 days you have Duke. So
Yeah.
all three of you guys have Duke, but James is the only one still in the running. Adam Klotz has Houston. I just found this. I just thought it'd be fascinating. You guys want to know this? Starting five for each of them and where they were as recruits. This is a quick story that we'll tell before we move on. I think it's fascinating. Florida, 2 unranked guys, and then a guy in the 40s, 30s, and about 19.
Wow.
Okay. Auburn, 2 unranked guys, highest ranking of 26. Their best player was ranked 77 at his position in the country.
Wow.
Houston, same thing, 225 ranking. Their highest was number 9. The center, Tugler, was 9th in the country, but 20s and 40s. And then you get to Duke.
Yeah.
1,
Chalk.
1, 3, 5. One starter who was not in the top 5 at his position in his recruiting class. That's Sion James, by the way, the point guard. Everybody else is top 5. It's kind of fascinating. 2 different stories here. You got a team built a certain way, and all 3 of the other built another way. And it probably should make you feel good, young establishment James. All right. Congressman Tim Burchett the other day had this moment where he was outside of Congress. This went viral. My son sent it to me. I said, yeah. Look, I don't need you for everything that's cool. I've already seen this moment that happened outside Congress. Here it is.
Congressman Harry, do you trust Trump's national security team to keep our war plans top secret?
You trust your mother every night to fix your hot pockets and make sure your Game Boy is turned on.
All right. Do you trust Trump's national security department to keep you safe? And then Congressman Tim Burchett says, do you trust your mother to have hot pockets and Game Boy ready to go? Congressman, that was locked and loaded. Don't act like you shot from the hip. You had it locked and loaded, surely.
No, it's pretty much shot from the hip. I see that guy at least twice a day, and I'm always afraid he's going to pull either a 45 out of his backpack and put one in the back of my head, or he's got that backpack's a satchel charge my dad used to throw in the caves when he was fighting the Japanese in the Pacific. I'm going to hear this whizzing sound, and there's going to be 10 pounds of TNT go off in my lap. But, he's hired by the Democrat Party. He's a private contractor. I don't know if George Soros or who writes his check, but he's out there every day. He asks these crazy questions. And I'm from Tennessee. This stuff that he asked me is just so ridiculous. Like it's going to hurt me in my district. It's like, do you approve of kicking men out of women's restrooms, or something stupid like that? And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I popped him a bunch. One time I got him on his white legs. And I guess the first one that I got him, it went, I don't know, 3 or 4 million. This last one went 7 million. I can't believe that, just on my Twitter account. But I said something about, I did not, he asked me if I approved of something. I said, but I do not approve of you wearing black socks with short pants. And so, I get him all the time. His wardrobe, that's easy. I'm probably going to have to branch out a little bit, but anyway, he's,
Well,
go ahead.
I'm curious about him. You said, so he's not from your district? He's just a hired gun that is assigned to you? And does it, by the way, do all of you congressmen have somebody assigned to them?
I don't know. I'm the only one he seems to attack on a regular basis, so I don't know what he's up to. But heck, he could be hired by the Republican Party because they don't like me all that much either. Since we haven't been passing too much of the Doge agenda.
What do you want to happen here? You want Doge recommendations?
I want every one of reconciliation. I want every one of the presidents. Every time he puts out an executive order, we ought to have a bill going to the committee that's representative of, and that mimics that executive order, because immediately the president gets sued, and what we can do is codify it, put it into law, and there's a different process there. But I think it would it'd go a long way to show America what we're doing, what we're about. Congress Republicans, we're 3-4 person majority, depends on what day it is. We're one flu season away from being out of the majority, literally. And so I would think that we would look at that and look at the president's overall approval when he won the White House. It was, it was by any stretch, no stretch of the imagination. The percentage was a heck of a lot larger than ours in Congress. And so I would think that we probably start reflecting that agenda that President Trump has put forth. And unfortunately, I don't think we are.
Well, tell me if I've got this wrong, because I don't ever profess to be an expert in congressional procedure. But you passed something like, a mirror effect of those executive orders in Congress, in the House, where you have that slim majority. It still gets bogged down in the Senate, right? You're going to need 60. So the way around that is you get it into hopefully sort of this reconciliation bill where you can jam a bunch of stuff in, get it over with 51. So do you see that happening, though, as they begin to put this thing together? Are they bringing a lot of these DOJ cuts or executive orders into consideration with whatever that big bill looks like?
I think they'll throw some in there, but they'll do that with a lot of excessive spending to get us to vote for them. And I just don't think that's the way to do it. Every dollar we save, we're going to turn around and give it to the war pimps at the Pentagon. To me, is not saving anything. Just speaking the truth, brothers, I see it. I know it's not. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the Republican Party going on this victory lap. We got to get some work done. We got to prove to America that we're going to do what we said we're going to do.
No, you saying you're speaking the truth. I'm not digesting that with a bitter taste. But I do wonder, because your name was out there. I think it was you and obviously Congressman Massey and several others that have held out on some of these budget proposals. But I wonder what the alternative is. Like, at some point, you're going to have to get something that all the Republicans are get behind. And as you pointed out, you don't have much margin for error. What do you said 2 or 3 now? One flu season. So
the reason I voted for
you got to get this agenda moving forward.
Yeah, the reason I voted for the last proposal was after my conversation with President Trump. We talked about 15 minutes, and I told him that I was just exactly that. I thought we had 150 days before Republicans started jumping ship on him, and I said that we have got to get into the Pentagon and start making some cuts, because that's where the big money is going to be. That in education. And I think that you're going to see in the Pentagon, it's going to make a lot of these, like USAID and others, pale in comparison. Because I feel like we've really, really spent a lot of money over there that probably, they haven't passed the last 8 audits. They haven't even, they're so arrogant, They haven't even completed them. And, and how did we punish them? The last National Defense Authorization Act, commonly called the NDAA, we gave them $8 billion new dollars. And I remember one year we gave them more money than they even asked for. And dadgum, they cannot account for over $500 billion. That's an aircraft carrier, brother. They cannot account for. And so it's going somewhere. I think it's up to this Congress to find out. And obviously we don't have the guts to do it. We've people are getting rich off this stuff. Look at Ukraine. We spent $250 billion over there, unchecked dollars that we borrowed to send over there, literally. And then the President Biden, under his leadership or lack thereof, we gave them our missile defense system. So we had to automatically refurbish ours or replenish ours, which we should. We should never be without that. Around a several $1 billion no bid contract. And who owns stock in the companies that benefited from that? Members of Congress, both sides of the aisle. I have a bill to eliminate our stock trading, but it'll never see the light of day. It's like a term limits bill. It's not going to happen. We don't have the guts to do it.
Right.
Neither party.
Those are 2 bills.
Does.
Those 2 bills are absolute. Maybe there's some debate on term limits. I happen to be somebody who doesn't see the merits of the other side, at least not for very long. But term limits, no stock trading. I actually like Massey's dual citizenship, whatever Disclosure Act. I don't even know why that's controversial. All of these, You should be dedicated to the United States of America. Why don't you be a citizen representative, give us 2 or 3 terms or whatever we decide it is, 4 terms as a congressman, and then going back to the private sector. I don't know why that's controversial.
They take me to the woodshed every time I talk on it, but just follow the money trail. That's why you're seeing them pitch a fit on these NGOs, Will. If I may be so bold to call you Will, because Elon Musk told us.
Congressman.
Yes, it's Tim. Congressman, some 85-year-old guy that ain't heard the gun go off out here. Anytime they say, "Hey, Congressman," I'm walking down the hall. I just keep walking because they ain't talking to me. They call me Tim. The custodians call me Tim. They're the ones up here working anyway. But anytime you see money, you better just follow that trail. And Elon Musk told us. He said there is a trail, and it goes right back to Washington. You remember that guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, or whatever his name was?
Yes.
That got busted on that Ponzi scheme dealing with cryptocurrency or whatever it was. I think he gave $20 million to Joe Biden's campaign. He gave some to Republican campaigns. That was money he unlawfully got, and then he gave to campaigns, and that was a sweetheart deal. And then it came right back to Congress. Just follow the money. Somebody's got a wife and or girlfriend that works for one of these departments or one of these NGOs or one of the consultants for it. I mean, if you're getting $1 billion, I mean, it'd be pretty easy to give somebody influential a job for a couple $100,000 and just tell them to stay at home.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something else I wanted to talk to you about today. I think you just came out of this. Tell me if I'm wrong. Did you just come out of your committee meeting on your Judiciary Committee meeting hearing?
No, are you talking about the Kennedy stuff?
No. I'm always happy to talk about Kennedy. If you got some revelations
what
on
were
that.
you getting to? I'm not on Judiciary, but it might have been.
Oh, I thought you were. Limiting limiting the extent of these district judges' decisions to issue national injunctions. I've talked to Congressman Issa. I've talked to Congressman Roy about this, and Senator Grassley's got something he's working on as well.
Yeah, Daryl's got the bill. Daryl's got the bill to gut them, and they should. They've overstepped their bounds, and that is a bad situation. It really is, because you got one judge that's just going to offset. They can just reach out and they shop around, and then miraculously this liberal judge up here whose wife is an activist and his daughter's an activist, and they've apparently made some coin off of going after Trump, and so it's pretty obvious they ought to be recused. And everybody wants to impeach them. That's not going to happen. The Senate won't do that. We ought to either work to disbar them or just defund them. We had the guts to do it, but I'm sure we'll study it for 6 months, and then nobody will be talking about it. We'll move on. America wants their pizzas in 30 minutes or less, and that's about our attention span.
What did you do before, Congressman, before you went to Washington?
I was a county mayor. Knox County, third largest county in the state of Tennessee. And I did
that's
crazy
right.
things.
You passed.
Crazy things like I
passed
paid down debt,
the torch
paid cash for schools, things like that. Not real sexy, but it was good work.
And then passed the torch to Glenn Jacobs, Cain, who's been on the show here several times.
Yeah, Glenn's a good friend.
Yeah, Knox County. Knox County is one of my favorite areas of Tennessee. Not that I'm well versed, but I did live outside of Knox County in Blount County for a little while there.
Now, that's my area.
COVID.
That's my area. I'm Blount County's in my congressional district. It's great. It's a great area. I love that area.
What did you do before you went into politics, though? I'm just curious your whole perspective on getting things done versus the way you're seeing it done in Washington, D.C.
I had a little business. I took all the city's yard waste and turned it into compost and mulch. I got accused of taking toxic waste. I lost the business. And the day after I lost the business, the EPA came in and cleared my name, if you can believe that. And I knocked on over 6,000 doors, and I won a state house race. I beat an incumbent out of 99 house races that year. I was the only person to beat an incumbent. I was there for 4 years, and in Tennessee, it's part-time. So I hustled. I bought old cars and motorcycles and fixed them up. I didn't work for anybody. I mean, I worked for the people, of course, but you're always like a kept man when you do that kind of stuff. And then 4 years later, I ran for the state Senate. I stayed there for 12 years, and I ran for county mayor, and I was there for 8 years. Then I ran for Congress. But I owned a truck and trailer business. Like I said, I wheeled and dealed. I like old motorcycles. When I married my wife, I had over 100 motorcycles, but I married her, and shortly thereafter, I adopted her daughter, and she likes horses. So my 100 motorcycles are down to about 20 to 25 right now.
Okay. But I imagine there's some offset on the number of horses that are have taken that up.
You just can't. It's just shoveling money out of the back of my truck every day. But my daughter loves them. You know, and I got 2 miniature donkeys somebody gave me. Well, they were in a bind, so I took them, and we got 60 acres. So they escape every day, and they're great therapy for me, because I was doing an interview one time. The guy's like, "Are you standing in the middle of the field?" And I go, "Yeah." And then about that time, the donkeys start walking up and nudging me, and they go, "Are those donkeys?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, I said, "They escaped. I was bringing them back." He goes, "That is the most Tim Burchett thing I think I've ever heard." And I thought, that's a compliment.
You didn't know this, I'm a big donkey fan. Big donkey fan. I mean, those animals are smart, and they've got a lot of personality. And people don't know that about donkeys.
Smartest animals, and and the two are like night and day, but they're herd animals. And if one gets separated from the other, they make a horrible racket, and they're great for we've got a young, we just had a new baby enter our life, a little colt, Nelson, and they keep the coyotes away, and man, they're wonderful. Yeah. And they're just therapy for me. I can they don't cost anything. Hang on, my light just shut off. They just, they just eat the hedgerows, you know, and I don't like shrubbery. We got a bunch of it in front of our house. And one day I was walking out there, and I was supposed to go on CNN, and I looked out there, and I saw those dadgum donkeys out there just eating my shrubbery. And I said, "I'm coming back here in about 15 minutes. When I'm finished, when I get back, y'all quit that." You know, and they just look at me like, "What the heck?" You know, and then I feed them peppermints. They're wonderful. I mean, they're my spirit animals, man. I love them. I can't get enough of them.
I do too. I hope to, and this sounds ridiculous, but I hope to be wealthy enough in life to afford a donkey at some point. And I know how counterintuitive that is, but that requires a little bit of land and a little bit of free time, someplace to put a donkey. But that's what I want. Before we go, I hated to cut you off.
No.
I hate to cut you off because I feel like you're on the verge of telling us, and of course we're all ears, who killed JFK?
Well, I think Oswald was a stooge. I think anytime if you look at any of the history of the killers of famous people, RFK, Saran, little goofy kid, and what's his name that allegedly shot Martin Luther King. You know, it's all just
James
crazy.
Earl Ray.
Yeah, James Earl Ray, and I don't know why. We used to minister to a guy in prison at Brushy Mountain, and I remember seeing James Earl Ray when I was a little kid. But I can tell you that the gun that they claim he used, it's called a Mannlicher carbine, and the picture they show of a guy holding up a gun was a Mauser. So we've just been lied to from the beginning on this thing. And the gun, I have one of those, and it was written up in a magazine as the only gun that never won a war. You know, he could have gone into a Western Auto, literally, and bought him an M1 with a scope, and could have done a heck of a lot better. You know, this Mannlicher carbine, it's a crappy gun, and it just ratchety. You shoot it, and the bolts flopping. It's just poorly manufactured, and it's a typical Italian type thing of that era. And we're not going to find out. It's been too long, and the agencies
does your philosophy
do what?
Does your philosophy sort of that you're applying, Sirhan, James Earl Ray, Lee Harvey Oswald? I'm just curious. Does that also apply to Thomas Crooks? You think there's much more to the story of the would-be assassin of Donald Trump?
Yeah, you talk about the deep state in Washington, it's really in a swamp. It's really just a sewer. A swamp is something God created, filters water, animals are there, and fish and all kinds of cool stuff. But Washington's just a sewer. It has anaerobic decomposition. There's no oxygen. There's no light. So the awful smell out of a sewage treatment plant. And that's really what Washington's all about. That kid was on that roof. They hosed that roof off. Let me tell you, when you have a crime scene in Knox County when I was mayor, I mean, they would rope that thing off. They would put a tarp over it. They would ensure all this other stuff. They couldn't hose that thing off fast enough. They couldn't get it contained. They cremated his body before there was an examination. Just all these other things. It would have been great to find out if he was on something. The guy had no internet. He had no internet connectivity, which is just crazy. It's just crazy. Everybody has internet. Even I mean, you know, of course I do, but the whole thing, I don't think we're ever going to know exactly what went on. That guy should have never been, you know, he walks up, he puts a ladder on the roof. The most recognized man in the world probably at the time, and he's able to crank off a shot. We were just lucky because and I might have been able to make that shot with just iron sights, and I just don't buy it. I mean, there's just too much, and again, we'll never know, and we haven't learned our lesson from the last ones, and the arrogance in these departments is beyond belief. I don't think
I hate that you say we'll never know. I hate that because this time you don't have the excuse of time. 50 years has not passed. It's not too dated. And I don't know who it's going to take with a little bit of energy. I don't know if it's Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, or Congress, or whoever it is. But this seems like something we shouldn't have to resign ourselves to. We'll never know.
Well, the irony of it all is that I've read this book. It's called I Heard You Paint Houses. Think about the guy who allegedly had something to do with the assassination of Jimmy Hoffa. And I don't really think he did it. I think he knows who did it. And he knew. He's dead now. But there was a line in that book where he talks about how that there's always a patsy. They always get some guy who's a little mentally deficient. And all those people have gotten to the most secure people in the world and been able to, the premier law enforcement agency in the world. And these are just screwballs. I mean, when they shot King, I mean, he was standing on a toilet, had one foot on a toilet and another foot in a bathtub, and he was leaned over. And, you know, and the thing I know about that, being from Tennessee, I know some folks that were there. A good friend of mine was a minister, and he was telling me about it. And, you know, how they cleaned the shrubbery out down below down the Lorraine Motel, where the shooting was supposed to, the Roadhouse or whatever it was, where he allegedly made that. And I'm not saying he didn't attempt that shot, but there's always a patsy. And this guy, I mean, the guy didn't have any money. He had a brand new Mustang at the airport, and they caught him in London, England. Now, how does that work?
Right. Well, I hope you get to the bottom of this stuff. I do, even though you say we'll never
get to the bottom of any of it. It's been too long, and there's too much. And the stuff they released on Kennedy, a lot of the stuff's already been disproven, but there's 70,000 pages, and people are going to read it, and they're going to go, hey, what about this? And we don't know. And we're going to have to go back, and it's all just a diversion.
All right, next time with your donkeys, Congressman, from home with your donkeys. We'd love that when you get to go back to the district.
We'll do it.
All right, Congressman Tim Burchett. I appreciate all the time today. Thank you so much.
Hope I have something positive for you next time, brother.
Okay. Yeah, I hope so too. Okay, we'll see you then. Thank you, Congressman. There you go. Congressman Tim Burchett here on the Will Cain Show. All right. I think that's going to do it for us today. Okay? We'll be right back here again tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern time. FoxNews.com, Fox News Facebook, Fox News YouTube. If you can't wait till then, hit subscribe at Apple or Spotify. I'll see you again next time.